A person walks alone through a quiet forest. Somewhere in the trees, a cougar has already noticed them, has already smelled soap, sweat, metal, smoke from a distant fire. None of that matches anything in the animal's internal map of food. So it does the one thing most people never expect from an apex predator. It watches, and it does nothing. For a few seconds, that person is protected by pure confusion. Too upright, too strange smelling, too unlike anything the predator's brain has ever filed under prey. And then a branch snaps behind them, and they gasp, stumble, and start running. And in that instant, everything the animal thought it knew about this strange creature quietly resets. This is the real story hiding behind most predator encounters. It isn't really about whether we're seen. It's about whether we accidentally translate ourselves into a language predators have understood for millions of years. Here's something most people never think about. Wild predators regularly detect humans and simply choose not to engage. Not out of fear and not out of respect, out of confusion. We genuinely don't fit their prey template. Think about what makes an animal recognizable as food to a predator. Deer move on all fours, low to the ground in predictable rhythms. Rabbits smell like grass and fear in a specific familiar way. Humans move upright on two legs, an unusual silhouette in most predator-prey categories. We also carry an almost absurd cocktail of scent: laundry detergent, sweat, cooked food, metal, smoke, sometimes fear itself, all layered together. To an animal built to instantly categorize everything it encounters as either food, threat, or irrelevant, a human is a strange, unresolved signal. That confusion buys us something valuable: hesitation. A predator that attacks every unfamiliar warm-blooded creature it encounters doesn't survive long. A bad target can cost it a broken tooth, a torn muscle, a damaged eye, and in the wild, those injuries are frequently fatal over time, not because of the wound itself, but because an injured predator often can't hunt effectively afterward. So before any attack, there's an unspoken biological question running. Is this food? Is this a threat? And is this actually worth the risk? Most of the time, humans simply fail that test as prey. We're too upright, too artificial smelling, too unfamiliar to cleanly fit the pattern. But that protective confusion isn't permanent, and it isn't unconditional. Sound has the power to override it entirely, and not all sound works the same way. A calm, steady human voice carried across distance can actually function as a warning system. In bear country, making consistent, deliberate noise while hiking is a recommended practice for exactly this reason. It signals presence without signaling distress. It tells an animal, in effect, "I'm here. Don't be surprised by me," which tends to encourage avoidance rather than confrontation. Panic sounds nothing like that. A scream doesn't move through a forest the way ordinary conversation does. A high, broken cry carries differently. Fast, uneven breathing changes the physical rhythm of a moving body. Running transforms footsteps into something closer to impact. Leaves becoming alarm signals, snapping branches becoming information. The forest doesn't need to understand human language to interpret loss of control. It only needs to recognize the pattern, and predators are exceptionally good at recognizing exactly that pattern. This is precisely why a fleeing animal draws far more attention than a still one. A rabbit frozen in grass is just a possibility. A rabbit exploding out of cover becomes a confirmed target. A deer standing alert is difficult to read. A deer crashing away through brush tells a predator exactly how the encounter is likely to end. Escape has a distinct sound signature, and sometimes, without meaning to, humans produce it. Different predators respond to that signal in genuinely different ways. Mountain lions are the clearest example. A cougar is fundamentally an ambush hunter. It wants silence, favorable angle, surprise, and ideally a moment where prey turns and moves away from it. This is exactly why official wildlife guidance consistently warns against running from a mountain lion. Running can activate a chase instinct that might otherwise never have triggered at all. That doesn't mean every person who runs gets attacked. Most don't. But the sound and motion of retreat can shift a human closer to the exact category a cougar is evolutionarily built to recognize. Something leaving, something moving with the rhythm of prey. Before that moment, the animal may still be hesitating, still processing an unfamiliar shape and scent. Panic can resolve that hesitation in the worst possible direction. Bears operate on a different logic entirely. A bear isn't typically waiting around for a chase the way a cat is. Many bear attacks are fundamentally defensive. The animal is startled at close range, protecting cubs, guarding a food source, or suddenly forced into an immediate decision. In these encounters, the dangerous sound often isn't fleeing prey at all. It's sudden chaos. A person crashing through brush, shouting, stumbling, appearing too close too quickly can register less like food and more like an active threat. The bear doesn't need to want to eat anyone. It only needs to conclude that the situation next to it is spiraling out of control. Wolves read the world primarily through sound and group behavior. Healthy wild wolves generally avoid adult humans entirely. They detect us, hear us, and frequently leave before we ever register their presence. But wolves are specialists in identifying weakness, separation, and confusion. A confident, cohesive group of humans sounds nothing like one frightened person alone. A steady voice sounds nothing like panicked crying. A person moving with purpose sounds nothing like someone stumbling blindly through undergrowth. The critical shift isn't fear itself. It's vulnerability becoming audible, and predators are, almost by definition, specialists in detecting exactly that. Even underwater, the same principle holds. A shark doesn't need visual clarity to assess a situation. Water transmits pressure, vibration, and motion with remarkable efficiency. A calm swimmer may still register as something worth noticing, but frantic, uneven splashing can closely resemble the surface disturbance of an injured or struggling animal, the exact kind of signal that warrants closer investigation. The shark may not be thinking human at all, and may not even be thinking prey in that first moment. It may simply be responding to a signal that says something at the surface is moving badly. That alone is often enough to draw it closer, and closer is precisely where things go wrong. None of this means panic sounds are some kind of magic trigger that guarantees an attack. Nature is far messier than that. Hunger, age, prior experience, and countless other variables all factor in. But these sounds share one dangerous property. They strip away the one thing that usually protects us most: doubt. A human who smells strange and stands still often isn't worth the risk of solving. A human who screams, thrashes, or crashes wildly through cover starts to resemble a problem predators have already solved, successfully for millions of years. Distress, injury, escape. The wilderness has no interest in identity. It only needs a recognizable pattern, and panic hands it one for free. This is also notably why hunters and wildlife callers can sometimes deliberately attract predators using sounds that imitate wounded or distressed animals. A distress call cuts through a landscape efficiently because predators already fully understand its meaning. Something is hurt, something is weakened, something may be catchable. Human panic can accidentally borrow fragments of that exact same signal, imperfectly, inconsistently, but often just enough to matter in precisely the wrong moment. Here's the quiet reversal underneath this entire story. Most of the time, our strangeness is what protects us. To a predator, we don't smell like clean prey, move like clean prey, or sound like clean prey. We're a confusing blend of human odor, upright posture, artificial noise, and unfamiliar behavior that simply doesn't compute cleanly against millions of years of instinct. But panic can strip that protective confusion away in seconds. A cry can resemble weakness. A sprint can resemble a chase already underway. A frantic rustle through leaves can resemble something injured trying desperately to escape. None of that guarantees anything will happen. It simply changes the question being asked. The predator stops trying to figure out what you are and starts calculating whether you can be caught. That's the real sound hiding behind this story. Not a secret frequency, not one specific scream, just the sound of control breaking down inside a body that has suddenly, briefly started to resemble something familiar. This has been the Reasonary, where curiosity meets clarity.